But yeah, I enjoyed finishing reading your epigraph poems this weekend, and frankly, I'm excited to send them to Joe and Steve, because I think they're going to be impressed with what you've done, and also, I believe, deeply honored by what you've done. Or maybe creeped out, too.
Wait, you're sending them the epigraph one?
Yeah.
I thought they assigned us the place poem.
Do that too.
Oh,
We're gonna
okay.
send that one too, yeah. Okay, so, but right now, I want to get to your place poems, and I want to try and get as many of these, if not all of them, workshopped today. So we may pick up the pace a little bit today, okay? So I do have number 11 on top. We skipped ahead because Peyton was gone last week. So I want to come back to Peyton's poem, Memories in the Sand. And who had that? Who's 12? Okay, Haley did. Okay, great.
Sand, clenching between the crevices of my toes, the cereal scent of sea breeze colliding with the odors of shoreline leftovers. Perfectly placed seashells and driftwood, a coastal treasure map painted in my cranial canvas. Each boulder fallen from the coastal cliff exactly where I left it the year before. As I changed, it changed with me. Sandy cliffs sculpting new playgrounds, preparing for launch into beach-bound flight, flipping and spinning into a pillow of broken sedimentary and metamorphic beauty. Towering monuments disintegrate into the earth along with my youth until all it is a memory.
Sand, clenching between the crevices of my toes. The surreal scent of sea breeze, colliding with odors of shoreline leftovers. Perfectly placed seashells and driftwood, the coastal treasure map painted in my cranial canvas. Each boulder fallen from the coastal cliff exactly where I left it the year before. As I changed, it changed with me. Sandy cliffs sculpted new playgrounds, preparing for launch into beach-bound flight, flipping and spinning into a pillow of broken sedimentary and metamorphic beauty. Towering monuments disintegrating into the earth, along with my youth, until all it is a memory.
I think there are a lot of strong imagery in this, and it really helps create a powerful poem. I just like the simplicity of the sand and how it's described. It's described in such wonderful detail that I can just picture everything. But starting from the top, where the title says Memories in the Sand, and then the first line says sand, I think maybe that first line could be something else because it says Memories in the Sand as the title. And then clenching between the crevices of my toes, I think maybe it could be clenched between the crevices of my toes because the sand's clenched in there. I really like the alliteration in the second or the third line, the cereal scent of sea breeze. That's really awesome. Colliding with odors of shoreline leftovers. When I wrote that, I could actually smell that because I know exactly what that smells like, so I thought that was awesome. I think maybe instead of colliding, it could just be collides. And perfectly placed seashells and driftwood. I think perfect is maybe a little too cliche, and I think there could be a lot of different ways to describe that. I loved a coastal treasure map painted in my cranial canvas. I thought that was very unique, and I really liked how that was written. I think each boulder, I think the word fallen could be on that line with each boulder. So each boulder fallen from the coastal cliff. I think that would add more emphasis maybe. Where it says, as I changed, it changed with me. If there's supposed to be a parallel there, then that's awesome. That could be left there, but maybe that word could be something else like evolved. I don't know. My favorite line though was sandy cliffs sculpting new playgrounds. I just thought that was really interesting, and it was kind of like a childish tone, and I really liked that. Where it says the preparing for launch into beach-bound flight. I was a little confused on what that was about, and I don't know if I'm just maybe not thinking right, but I can't really understand what that means. But I really liked the whole part about the flipping and spinning into a pillow of broken sedimentary metamorphic beauty. I think that is worded excellently, and I really like that. And the end is also awesome. It's one that makes you think, and I really like that. My only suggestion is where it says, until all it is a memory, I think it could just say, until all is a memory, to add more suspense maybe, but overall, I really liked this poem. It was awesome.
Great, thank you, Haley. Very helpful. Others, Lisa?
I noticed that the author in the third line, when it says cereal scent, he read it surreal.
Okay.
So I was just wondering
Okay.
if that was on purpose and then they
Good.
just kind of put the wrong word.
Good catch. Okay.
Another thing that the author read when he was reading it was, at the end, disintegrate. He read it as disintegrating. I just thought that was interesting. I thought maybe that the preparing for launch into beach-bound flight was flying a kite, because that was like the first thing I want to do when I get to the beach is fly a kite. And I really love this poem overall. I love the language in it, and it really reminds me of the beach that I spent my childhood playing on. So it was really cool.
Oh, good. Thanks, Stacy.
Something I noticed about this is throughout the whole poem, starting with where it says painted in my cranial canvas, it kind of shows the entire scene as existing inside of the speaker's mind and not, and it disintegrates outside of the speaker's mind. So it says instead of exactly where I left it, instead of exactly where it was the year before, like it didn't exist outside of that. And then as I changed, it changed with me. And in the end, towering monuments disintegrating into the earth along with my youth. So it's almost like it disappeared when he wasn't present. And so I thought that was kind of interesting because it kind of goes through the poem that way, where this exists kind of just inside the speaker's mind. And when he comes back to it, it is where he left it. And I thought that was an interesting thing, how it tied together with the poem.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that's an interesting mix of permanence and changing between those two images. Anything else? Okay. I love the idea of this poem. I love thinking about how landscape shapes a person, our connection with terrain. And I think this poem really does it, especially in the second stanza. The word, I may have mentioned it to you, but one of the words for that is psychotopes, how landscape influences your psychology, who you are. Think about the bus route on the way home, all those houses, those places you watch sitting on the bus, every day on that route, and how did those things sift into who you are? And here we have this beach landscape, this coastal landscape. Really liked I was wondering about cereal, and I don't know if surreal is also the best word either, if that's what's intended. I might just like the scent of sea breeze colliding with the odors of shoreline leftovers. And there are words for shoreline leftovers, like the brack and the bracken and things like that. But I like the sounds here colliding with odors of shoreline leftovers. Just a really lovely sounds there. And then I too liked the pillow of broken sedimentary and metamorphic beauty. I end the poem at youth. Towering monuments disintegrate into the earth along with my youth. And stop it right there, because the rest of it is overstated to me and it's already in the poem. And so I want to just end on that terrific image. I think it also needs a new title. Memories in the Sand just isn't doing it for me. Too familiar, it resonates with another famous title. maybe like metamorphic or even sand would be better, something else. Any comments or questions for us?
No, thank you guys. Just some clarification, because you guys, I knew would be kind of confused about beachbound flight. It's like kind of coastal cliffs, like they get carved out by weather and whatnot, and then there's like platforms we can flip off into the sand below, the soft sand. That's what I was trying to explain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Let's pass them in. Okay. And then we've got, I believe Kimberly is up, has the floor with Heaven.
Heaven. Clamping onto my fragile fingers, the seraph I love so dearly opens up my eyes to a new world. Nirvana, Valhalla, heaven. Thank you for being such a good boy, the angel whispers. Where am I? Am I dead? Instantaneously, I make my presence known. In this world, streets paved with gold. Ripping and wrestling, slinging gallons of Roy G. Biv in my plastic baggie, praying it won't cost the cherub that carried me here a fortune. Cavities don't exist here, or dentists. They lurk in the underworld with Hades and diabetes. But it's perfect here. Everyone lives like a kid in a candy store.
Heaven, clamping onto my fragile fingers, the seraph I love so dearly, opens up my eyes to a new world. Nirvana, Valhalla, heaven. Thank you for being such a good boy, the angel whispers. Where am I? Am I dead? Instantaneously, I make my presence known. In this world, streets paved with gold. Ripping and rustling, slinging gallons of Roy G. Biv in my plastic baggie, praying it won't cost the cherub that carried me here a fortune. Cavities don't exist here, or dentists. They lurk in the underworld with Hades and diabetes, but it's perfect here. Everyone lives like a kid in a candy store.
So I really liked this poem. I thought the dramatic situation was a little bit ambiguous, but I read it as a child who had died and gone to heaven, which happened to be a candy store. But I suppose you could also read it as just a kid visiting a candy store and viewing it as heaven. But either way, I thought the idea of imagining heaven through a child's eyes is really interesting. Some of the strongest lines in the poem, I think, happen after we enter heaven, which would be lines like, ripping and wrestling, slinging gallons of Roy G. Biv in my plastic baggie, cavities don't exist here, or dentists, they lurk in the underworld. I thought that was a really funny line, and also a nice mythological landscape. And they also, both of those parts of the poem add to the characterization of the speaker as a child. I'm not sure that I'm necessarily correct in that, but I think it makes the poem really lively. As far as suggestions for revision go, there's a couple places where I would remove wordiness, like in the first line, clamping onto my fragile fingers. I thought that could be clamping my fragile fingers. Similarly, in the third line, it could be opens my eyes to a new world. And later on, there was a comma I thought that maybe was misplaced. It's the line, cavities don't exist here. I think there's a comma there that I removed, and some other punctuation things, maybe ending some lines, ending some sentences would be good. I was also confused about the line, instantaneously I make my presence known. I thought instantaneously was maybe an unnecessary or kind of confusing word choice, so I might consider changing that or taking that out. I also think that there's a little bit of a cliche with the cost the cherub that carried me here a fortune, though it's split up, so it might be okay, but there might be a less cliche way to say that. But mostly I just want to know more about the setting. I want to see more of the great imagery that I think this poem starts. I want to know what it looks like and who else is there and stuff like that. But overall, I think it's really childlike, creative, and fun. The combination of heaven with the candy store out, I would never have thought of that, and I thought it was just super unique, so great job.
Thank you. It's helpful. Others?
I just want to comment, my favorite line is, "Thank you for being such a good boy." I think it's hilarious, and like, I think the narrator probably has never heard that, or just from the sense of that, I just think it's funny.
Yeah.
You get a sense that the narrator is not a good boy.
Ah, okay, yeah. Right. Okay, others, yeah, Lisa.
Well, originally I was confused as to what Roy G. Biv was, so I looked it up, and it's the colors of the rainbow. So I thought that was really interesting, and I kind of wished that somehow it was interconnected a little bit more throughout the poem, as far as, like she was saying, with like the imagery of being able to see what it looks like, and he was there, that kind of stuff. And I was kind of, I wondered when he says instantaneously I make my presence known, I kind of want to know how exactly he does that, because it could be some sort of gesture.
I would love it if he passed gas or something.
Yes, like something funny. It would be really great. But I really enjoyed this poem.
Okay, others? Yeah.
I liked how the poet incorporated two different landscapes. That was the assignment, but it was interesting how there was a mythological landscape in like Greek stories with the underworld and Hades.
Yeah.
And then I got a cultural landscape in the fourth line, Nirvana, Valhalla, Heaven, because it's invoking the different aspects of heaven from different cultures. I think Nirvana is East Indian, Norse, and then Heaven from Christianity.
Yeah, yeah, good. Yeah, the poem really responds well to the prompt in that way. Okay, anything else? Stacy?
I didn't actually think about it until after everybody was mentioning instantaneously I make my presence known, but I think maybe that it was intended that the presence was made known by the ripping and rustling of the candy in the plastic baggie. That was the noise, and then the cherub might get in trouble because he has that. So I don't know if that's how it was made known, because it was made known in the streets with the rippling, rustling, slinging gallons of Roy G. Biv in my plastic baggie. The one thing that I thought might be or might not be necessary is if there were maybe some stanza breaks in here, just to kind of break it up a little bit to make the sections clearer as to what's happening. But yeah, it was great.
Okay, thank you. We're going to stop there. Listen, I think one of the strengths clearly of this writer is writing humor. And I want to see this poem pushed even more in that direction. And because the humor is inherently surprising too, and we want that surprise. So I actually, I would maybe think about starting, the other thing to think about too is once you've written the poem or the story according to the prompt, then forget about the dictates of the prompt. Like if the prompt said don't go over one page, don't worry about that. If the prompt said use 4 layers of landscape, layer the landscape in these 4 different ways, don't worry about that. So, because the primary criterion now, the primary goal now is to make the poem as good as you can make it. So I might think about starting with "Thank you for being such a good boy," right there. I like that, and then getting us into heaven a lot more quickly. And maybe not an angel, but something else more unexpected or something. Play with it, and then because where it really takes off for me is that ripping and rustling, slinging gallons of Roy G. Biv in my plastic baggie, and the cavities and the dentist. There's that's the good stuff right there. That's really surprising and funny. Hades and diabetes, terrific sounds. It put me in mind of the kind of feminine rhymes that rappers use in their songs. Hades and diabetes, great. Now the kid in the candy store, I can't go with that. It's just too cliched and just it's not working for me. So I needed to end somewhere else. But I also wanted to start somewhere else too and explore more of that kind of, dentists don't, we don't have any dentists here either. They're down in the underworld. More of that kind of thing. I think I want to second the comment about the stanzas too, because, one of the things to keep in mind when you're making poems is that you're using the white space. In addition to putting language in the white space, you're using the white space as well. And stanzas really give us a breath, they break things up nicely so that, it's just kind of a breath when you're reading it, when you see the poem on the page. They're akin to prose. When you're reading an essay and like the paragraph goes on for 3 pages, that's just like sort of, knocking your head against the wall. Paragraphs also do the same thing in prose. They break it up, they give you a little breathing space. Any comments or questions for us?
Oh, thank you.
Okay, let's pass them in. And then, let's see, I've got the winter difference up. And Cassandra has the floor with the winter difference.
The winter difference. When we were no longer young, the morning fog reached through the window to pull us from our nest of worn blankets. It gripped our hands and guided us away from our aunt clanging in the warm kitchen. Outside, empty apple orchards grew trees and rose like gravestones. Ice crystals kissed your toes through the sandals as you stepped through the snow. The surrounding structure sighed and groaned, threatening to collapse and crush us with rot. The farmhouse hunched in the far field, flinched as cold wind funneled through frayed screens. A tabby cat crawled through the gaping hole in the shed, opening the splintered door. We followed. Inside, I rocked in the blue armchair, cat on lap, and tried to thaw my frozen fingers by the fire, while you rummaged for a can of Coke. Finding one, you tiptoed over the plywood and sprawled on green dirt-crusted carpet, staring into the flame while frost seeped through the cracks in the walls. If only harvest hadn't come, if only the rafters hadn't let you go, if only we hadn't plunged our sharp baby teeth into the core of that apple, small, dirty, sweet, becoming wary of buried black walnuts and rough gravel roads. If only we hadn't glimpsed glassy ice forming spikes on sunflower petals. We could have played with singing tree spirits, forgetting, gulping hungry fog forever. The trees could have whispered secrets to hide the sounds of hammering and heavy hands and hearts in these broken houses.
The winter difference. When we were no longer young, the morning fog reached through the window to pull us from our nest of warm blankets. It gripped our hands and guided us away from your aunt clanging in the warm kitchen. Outside, empty apple orchards grew trees and rose like gravestones. Ice crystals kissed your toes through your sandals as you stepped through the snow. The surrounding structures sighed and groaned, threatening to collapse and crush us with rot. The farmhouse hunched in the far field flinched as cold wind funneled through frayed screens. A tabby cat crawled through a gaping hole in the shed. Opening the splintered door, we followed. Inside, I rocked in the blue armchair, cat on lap, and tried to thaw my frozen fingers by the fire while you rummaged for a can of Coke. Finding one, you tiptoed over plywood and sprawled on green, dirt-crusted carpet, staring into the flame while the frost seeped through the cracks in the walls. If only harvest hadn't come. If only the rafters hadn't let you go. If only we hadn't plunged our sharp baby teeth into the core of that apple, small, dirty, sweet, becoming wary of berry black walnuts and rough gravel roads. If only we hadn't glimpsed glassy ice forming spikes on sunflower petals. We could have played with singing tree spirits, forgetting gulping, hungry fog forever. The trees could have whispered secrets to hide the sounds of hammering and heavy hands and hearts in these broken houses.
Okay, so I really liked this poem. I thought there was a lot of really strong verbs and adjectives, like the nest of worn blankets clinging in the kitchen, funneled through frayed screens. I also thought there was a lot of good alliteration and personification throughout, which made it really strong. Along with this, there was also some really good imagery. I felt like I was watching this whole thing happen. I thought that the landscape was both active and mythical because I felt like it played a large part in what was happening, but I thought the dramatic situation was maybe that, eating this apple was like eating, like in, was it Adam and Eve?
Genesis?
Yes. So in winter, if they hadn't eaten it, then winter wouldn't have come and they wouldn't be dealing with this right now. What else did I say? There was one part, it's just little, it's in the fourth stanza, there's a capital A and I think it's just when you're typing it, it capitalized it. And I don't know, other than that, I just really liked it. I pretty much just have positive feedback for it.
Thank you, Cassandra. Others? Lisa?
I was a little bit, I love all of the alliteration and the sounds of how all of it sounds. My favorite was like sprawled on green dirt crusted carpet, because you can totally see that in your mind when she says that. I was a little confused though as to what was going on. I was trying to figure it out. I don't know, I felt like, okay, so they followed the tabby cat into the shed, but inside the shed there was a blue armchair and a fire and a can of Coke. And I got lost there, and then in the next stanza I was trying to figure out what was happening. I feel like the person that was with the speaker died or something, but I haven't really figured out how. Because it says, talks about an apple, but it also talks about walnuts and gravel roads and ice bikes, so.
What do you make of this line? If only the rafters hadn't let you go.
Like maybe he was crawling up the rafters of the shed and then fell. I didn't know what it had to do with the apples, so I was confused. That's maybe just me.
Thank you.
I thought that line had to do with the news, but I could be wrong.
That image flickered through my mind as well. I think of, others? Zach?
So just to further, I pick up that something bad happened, especially with lines like broken houses in the very last line, but it is still vague to me, unclear, so that could be clarified as well. Otherwise, I really like I like the way you go into that shed and there's a fire and a Coke and it's unexplained. It seems kind of childlike or whimsical, I guess. And that's kind of like what I'm picking up is that winter equals growing up or symbolizes that in the poem, but I could be off there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, Vicki?
I also felt like there might, I don't know if the author meant this, but I feel like they might be addressing a little bit the idea of the orchards passing, and you know how many of them are being replaced and by housing complexes. I sort of was thinking that because of the sounds of hammering and heavy hands and hearts in these broken houses, so it's like a little double meaning there.
Okay. Thank you, Zoe.
I really want to know more of the story because I feel like something did happen tragic, and especially with like the if onlys, the fifth or fourth or fifth stanza, there's so many if onlys and then the lots of what these could have. So I feel like maybe there might have been a death and it's feeling remorse and maybe if he stopped it type of thing. There's a lot of allusion to buried and black and dirt. I think that could also be second death. I just wanted more detail.
Yeah. And of course, the title, The Winter Difference.
Yeah, winter.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Anything else? I guess I'm in the same place. Just a terrific, lot of good stuff going on in here. Like Cassandra, hard to find some constructive comments, but my main one really is I'm wondering if something happened to the person who's being addressed here, this is the second person. I have the feeling that something did, but I'm not sure. The other way I'm reading it is that this is also that maybe it's not, maybe something didn't happen, and that this is really a lament for what we lose in childhood as we grow older and inhabit these broken houses, these bodies that we are, these broken houses. So I think the title is just beautiful, The Winter Difference. And then the trees in rows like gravestones is really memorable simile. Any comments or questions for us?
Yeah, I apologize for the ambiguous situation. I was getting at, like, what is lost when we grow up, so. But I also wrote it ambiguously so that it could be read to do
Yes.
with that as well, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Great, and then, that's it, yeah, let's pass it away. I was gonna say, yeah, make sure you capitalize the C on Coke. The importance of capital. All right. So, let's see here. Welcome to Colmar. But Emily, I don't see Emily. Let's see her. Well, I tell you what, let's skip ahead, and then if we get back to it, we're gonna come, we'll work on Welcome to Hallmark together, okay? Or do you just want us to go for it?
I don't know.
Let's skip ahead, and then we'll,
Then we're
yeah,
gonna have to skip.
we can maybe come back. Yeah, skip Emily's as well. And it's time to take a trip to Bremerton with Janelle. Okay, so she just left, so we're gonna start, we'll start.
Start with me.
I'm gonna go ahead and read it aloud.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I'll read it now. Bremerton. Once voted the most livable place in America, home of Bill Gates Sr. and Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard. Welcome to Kidnap County. Once they get a hold of you, you can never leave. Commissioners hike taxes 183% to build Money Pit Marina. Sir Mix-a-Lots, Bremelo Beast, always chasing fellas in the Navy. Aircraft carriers, smokestack blinking its haunting crimson light. Battleship barricade against the sea green port. Mom's favorite place, American Legion Post 149. Bake sales, booze, crawling up the street to avoid DUI. A 1-hour ferry ride from downtown Seattle. Unique neighborhoods and affordable housing. Here in West Park, you may enjoy the gang violence. Family picnic ends in gunfire. Bremerton Ninja, keeping 11th and Warren safe. Remains found in Burley Woods. 35 parks, a marina, boardwalk, and 3 suspicious incidents involving attempted luring. Black Spider-Man is on the ferry. Looking for the armed guard in the BHS clock tower. First grader brings gun to school. 8th graders are claiming to be in a gang, but get beat up every time they leave town. Walk to school wearing your ROTC uniform. Navy men will think you are an officer and stop to salute. If you were a Bremelo, They just take you on base.
Once voted the most livable place in America, home of Bill Gates Sr. and Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard. Welcome to Kidnap County. Once they get a hold of you, you can never leave. Commissioners hiked taxes 183% to build Money Pit Marina. Sir Mix-a-Lot's Bremelo beast always chasing fellas in the Navy. Aircraft carriers, smokestack blinking its haunting crimson light. Battleship barricade against the sea green port. Mom's favorite place, American Legion, Post 149. Bake sales, booze, crawling up the street to avoid DUI. A 1-hour ferry ride from downtown Seattle. Unique neighborhoods and affordable housing. Here in West Park, you may enjoy the game violence. Family picnic ends in gunfire. Bremerton Ninja keeping 11th and Warren safe. Remains found in Burley Woods. 35 parks, a marina, boardwalk, and 3 suspicious incidents involving attempted touring. Black Spider-Man is on the ferry. Looking for the armed guard in the VHS clock tower. First grader brings gun to school. 8th graders are claiming to be in a gang. They get beat up every time they leave town. Walk to school wearing your ROTC uniform. Navy men will think you're an officer and stop to salute. If you were a Bremelo, they'd just take you on base.
Should I read it now?
Yeah, no, I read it for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I don't know where Bremerton is. It sounds familiar to me, but obviously it's kind of a place filled with crime and just kind of a crazy town, I think. But where it says "Welcome to Kidnap County," I don't know if that's actually the name of the county, but that's some good irony there. And also, I have a question, or I guess I can't really ask a question, but like, I don't know what you'd call it, but like the indentation right here after, once they get a hold of you, you can never leave, that indentation there. And then also, 8th graders are claiming to be in a gang but get beat up every time they leave town. I'm just not really sure of the relevance that has. Battleship barricade against a sea green port, I really like that line. I like I don't know, I just like how that sounds. And bake sales, booze, crawling up the street to avoid DUI, I think that's really funny. Here in West Park, you may enjoy the gang violence. I think that's funny and sarcastic. Yeah, I just think this poem is funny in a way. It has like sarcasm. I really like using sarcasm, so I like to admire it in this poem. I'm kind of confused on the Black Spider-Man is on the ferry. Just some of these things, I don't, like, it has really good imagery, and the way that this author is describing things is interesting. It just kind of confuses me with some things. But yeah, it's really interesting. I like how this poem is written.
Okay, thanks, Janelle. Yeah.
I want to say that Bremerton is in Kittitas County. I mean, that sounds familiar just because it says Kidnap County. It's kind of the same, or one of those. I don't know. That just sounds familiar for me.
You're thinking, but you're feeling it might be a pun off of the
Yeah,
real
pun
name
off
of the
what
county.
it really is. So I
Yeah.
thought that was really nice that
Okay.
was in there. And I also really like the part that says bake sales, because that's such an opening thing. Like bake sales, like everybody loves bake sale, but then it's booze and such a horrid, like kind of a harsh thing, crawling up the street to avoid a DUI. It's kind of opposite tones there, and it works well.
Yeah. Okay, good. Vicki?
I thought it was interesting the way the author mixed the good and the bad together. You know, there's some definite, once voted the most livable places in America, home of Bill Gates, Mom's favorite American Legion, et cetera. So it really kind of juxtapositioning those two things, I thought, really accentuated both of them.
Yeah. What about the Scientology detail? Is that good or bad?
Oh, well, that's, yeah. We'll leave that up for the jury.
Okay. Cole?
I really like how this reminded me of almost a brochure,
Mhm.
but it was a twisted play on it. The tone matched like, oh, come here, we've got all this cool stuff, but what's in place of the cool stuff is all the crime and violence.
Yeah, so there's an irony that in the tone of a brochure, you know, you might also enjoy our lovely views, our gang violence, you know. Yeah, so the irony creates some energy in the poem.
Yeah, I was also gonna say that they sounded like from a brochure, especially that here in West Park, you may enjoy the gang violence. I really love that. I also liked the 5th stanza, the broken, I guess they were kind of like broken sentences that were like related to each other, but also like their own story in themselves. They kind of sounded like news bulletins to me, or like headlines or something that you'd see on the news, which I really loved. The family picnic ends in gunfire, Bremerton Ninja keeping 11th and Warren safe. Like, those all seemed like very interesting tidbits to include, and I feel like the fact that the author, did that in this way was very creative and clever, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah. What did you make of the Black Spider-Man and the Bremerton Ninja?
I feel like a lot of the references are like really specific to
Local,
Bremerton. I'm
yeah.
sure if I lived in Bremerton, I would understand those references.
I was wondering if it was, you know how, did you have an idea?
Oh, I thought it was like, had something to do with race, and there's like a character that's a black Spider-Man.
Yeah, yeah. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, well, I just kind of took it more like literal. I feel like when you go to cities, there's a lot of different kinds of people, and so I feel like I wouldn't be surprised at all if I saw the black person in a Spider-Man suit just hanging
Yeah.
out, because I've seen it in Wenatchee before.
I was wondering if it maybe referred to, you know how sometimes people will just start dressing like a superhero and be a vigilante in town. They'll start like walking around. Have you heard about that?
Didn't
Like
we
in
have
Seattle?
one here?
We had one here in Wenatchee
Schizophrenia?
a few years ago, where people started just, you know, start dressing up, and, you know, sometimes they'll take on the persona of a known superhero, or they'll just make up their own in costume, and just walk around, try to help keep the peace.
But I think it could also be an anti-hero. Like, everything is, oh, this is, you enjoy the gang violence, oh, you know, Black Spider-Man as in the anti-hero. This is not the good guy saving things, but this is the bad anti-hero out there doing the opposite of what you might expect good Spider-Man to do.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, this just came to my mind. There also was, I don't remember the name, but it was like in the third movie maybe, where it was Spider-Man and it had the black stuff and then the suit went all black. Yeah, I know.
Okay. So maybe a reference, popular culture reference there, allusion. Okay.
You could have another stanza where the ninja and the black Spider-Man like battle.
Right, yeah. Okay, well, anything else? Okay, good. Listen, I think that the details here are just terrific and doing some really good work. I mean, this is such an example of showing and not telling, and trusting in the details to do the work. My primary constructive comment here is, well, remember Mike McGriff's poem, Coos Bay, which was one of the models for us that Joe Wilton shared with us, Coos Bay. And remember, it was like just like a bunch of nouns for doing the work. And the way he wrote it, it's not choppy. It's not overly choppy, even though it's a bunch of nouns. So one thing I would work to do is have fewer end stops on these lines and try to increase the fluidity of this poem, so that it's not quite as choppy. It doesn't stop us so often, but you know, goes from one thing to the next, and I think it'll gain it'll heighten the effect through that kind of accretion. Okay. any comments or questions for us?
No, I was just gonna say, I really enjoyed writing this. It's actually Kitsap County. And they call it Kidnap County, and they make t-shirts.
Really?
It said Kidnap County on them, and I just thought that was funny.
Well, the good thing is, I think, the thing is, I think it's, you know, it's, even if someone's not familiar with the name,
Yeah.
they can read it. I mean, it works that way.
And then, like, just some of the different details are actual things that happen, like there's a guy that stands on 11th and Warren with a big stick, and he acts like a ninja, and that's, he's all the time there. And then the Black Spider-Man, she was right about the, like, the anti-hero, the Black Spider-Man, and there was a guy that dressed up like Spider-Man and got on Ferry. He went different places all over town, but it was just,
Wow, okay. So, maybe this, I don't know if you don't have any summer plans yet. Bremerton might be in your future, okay?
but Sir Mix-a-Lot is from.
Ah, okay, let's pass them in.
Road trip. Let's go to Bremerton.
Yeah.
So, we'll finish up with these tomorrow. We'll keep with the schedule of the fiction unit.
Don't we have Wednesday for me?
If I-
Tomorrow's
Oh,
the
yeah,
last day.
thank you. So, yeah, we're gonna